The sterile hum of medical machinery in room 304 was a constant, almost hypnotic rhythm against the silence of the night. Dr. Anya Sharma stood beside Elias Vance's bed, the digital readout on the monitor a stark display of a life slowly ebbing. Her gaze swept over the charts, the precise notations a professional shield against the raw reality confronting her. Terminal pancreatic cancer, stage 4, she murmured, her voice a low, clinical tone, though she spoke mostly to herself. 3 to 4 weeks remaining. The words were familiar, part of her daily lexicon, yet they carried a fresh weight each time. Elias, a man in his early 70s, had already made his decision. He'd refused further aggressive treatment, opting instead for what he called a dignified exit, seeking comfort in his final days. Anya respected his autonomy, even as her medical instincts screamed for intervention. Then the phone call came, shattering the late-night quiet of the nurses' station. It was Marcus Thorne, director of the Oakdale Wildlife Sanctuary, his voice urgent, laced with a plea Anya had never encountered in her career. "Mr. Thorne," Anya began, incredulity tightening her jaw, "you're asking me to allow a full-grown male lion into a hospital room. It's completely unprecedented. This is a healthcare facility, not a zoo." Her mind reeled, the sheer absurdity of it. Infection control, patient safety, the inherent danger of a wild animal. Marcus's voice softened, tinged with a desperate sincerity. "Dr. Sharma, Elias Vance founded Oakdale. Kai isn't just a lion. He's his lion, his lifelong companion. Their connection defies conventional explanation. It's the only thing Elias has asked for, his final wish." Anya's internal world fractured. Her years of medical training, her unwavering adherence to protocol, clashed violently with a burgeoning sense of empathy. "It's still a wild animal, Mr. Thorne," she argued, the words feeling hollow even to her own ears. The thought of a powerful predator, capable of immense destruction, freely roaming within these walls, sent a shiver down her spine. The ethical tightrope felt impossibly thin. "The administration has approved it," Marcus stated, the revelation dropping like a lead weight. "Special liability waivers have been signed, and there's been some media attention. They're positioning it as a compassionate gesture." Anya felt a prickle of unease. Media attention? That detail felt strategically placed, unsettling. This wasn't just about compassion. There were layers she couldn't quite grasp. It was close to 2:00 a.m. when the elevator doors on Elias's floor opened. Anya watched, a cold knot forming in her stomach, as 4 sanctuary handlers, broad-shouldered and tense, meticulously guided a massive tawny-maned lion into the dimly lit corridor. The air thickened, heavy with the scent of wild animal, a stark contrast to the antiseptic tang of the hospital. Kai, the lion, was surprisingly calm, his enormous paws padding silently on the linoleum, his golden eyes scanning the unfamiliar surroundings with an unsettling intelligence. They reached room 304. Elias, previously drifting in and out of consciousness, his breath shallow, seemed to sense their presence. His eyelids fluttered open, revealing eyes that, despite the pain and the encroaching shadow of death, held a flicker of profound recognition. A fragile smile touched his pain-lined face. "Kai," he whispered, his voice raspy but imbued with an almost childlike joy. "You came." The handlers tensed as Kai took a tentative step towards the bed. Anya held her breath, every instinct screaming at her to intervene, to protect. But then, the lion did the unthinkable. He lowered his immense head, slowly, gently, placing it against Elias's outstretched, frail hand. A low rumble, not a growl but a purr, vibrated through the room, a sound of deep contentment. With astonishing care, Kai shifted, using his powerful front legs to hoist himself onto the bed. The mattress dipped precariously under his weight. He didn't settle roughly, but meticulously, nestling his massive, fur-covered body against Elias's chest, his head resting by the old man's shoulder. Tears, silent and steady, streamed down Elias's face as he lifted a trembling hand to stroke Kai's magnificent mane. "My boy," he murmured, his voice choked with emotion. "My beautiful boy." The scene was an impossible tableau of tenderness. Anya stood transfixed, her medical clipboard forgotten in her slackened grip. The clinical detachment she relied on had evaporated. replaced by an overwhelming sense of awe. She was witnessing a bond that defied every scientific explanation, every animal behavior textbook. This wasn't just an animal, it was a soul connected to another, a predator offering profound, unprecedented comfort. Marcus, standing quietly beside her, sensed her shock. He leaned in, his voice barely a whisper. He was an orphaned cub, Dr. Sharma, found with a broken leg. Elias saved him, raised him as his own. Anya could only nod, her mind struggling to reconcile the wildness of the beast with the impossible gentleness of its heart. The world outside room 304 began to stir with the first faint whispers of dawn, yet inside time seemed suspended. For 2 hours, Kai had remained a silent, warm presence on Elias Vance's bed, his massive body curled protectively against the frail old man. His rhythmic breathing, a deep, resonant rumble, seemed to fill the room, a primal lullaby. Anya, still grappling with the surreal reality before her, cautiously approached the bed to check Elias's vitals. Her fingers found his pulse steady and surprisingly strong. She glanced at the monitor. His blood pressure is stabilized, she murmured, a gasp catching in her throat as she saw the pain indicators. Pain indicators significantly decreased. This is unbelievable. The numbers didn't lie, yet her medical brain struggled to comprehend. The lion's presence had, quite literally, brought comfort and peace that no analgesic could match. Marcus, his gaze never leaving the peaceful tableau of man and beast, spoke quietly, elaborating on Kai's past. Poachers killed his mother, Dr. Sharma. Elias found him as a cub, starving, injured. He paused, his expression growing distant, almost troubled. But there was always something unusual about that incident, something Elias suspected went deeper than just sport. Anya turned, a flicker of professional curiosity piercing through her emotional turmoil. Unusual how? Marcus lowered his voice further. Elias found traces of specialized equipment, not typical traps, more sophisticated, and later, during Kai's recovery, odd biomarkers showed up in his blood tests, unusual even for a wild animal. He believed Kai was a target, not just a casualty of indiscriminate poaching. The implication hung heavy in the air, a discordant note in the otherwise tranquil scene. A target? Why a cub? As the sky lightened to a pale gray, Marcus reluctantly suggested, "It might be time to separate them, Dr. Sharma. The staff will be arriving soon." Elias stirred, his eyes opening clear and alert. His voice, surprisingly stronger than it had been hours before, cut through the quiet. "Wait, there's an envelope in the bedside drawer, Anya." With a sense of foreboding, Anya retrieved it. Inside was a legal document, heavy parchment bearing a notarized seal. Her eyes scanned the text and her blood ran cold. It was Elias's explicit wish to die at his secluded cabin within the sanctuary, Kai by his side. "I don't want to die here," Elias stated, his gaze meeting hers, unflinching. "I want to go home, to my cabin, with Kai. My lawyer has all the paperwork for hospice care there, already arranged." Anya's grip tightened on the document and her medical protocol screamed refusal. "Mr. Vance, moving a terminal patient to an uncontrolled environment, it's against every best practice. The risks are enormous. Infection, lack of immediate medical support." The words felt inadequate, hollow, against the profound peace radiating from him. She looked at Elias's face, peaceful, almost alive, his hands still resting on Kai's soft fur. The profound impact of the lion was undeniable, almost miraculous. How could she deny him this? The scientific, logical part of her mind rebelled, yet her heart ached with understanding. A deep sigh escaped her. "I'll need to make some calls," Anya conceded, the words tasting like ash in her mouth. "There are protocols even for compassionate release, extremely rare ones, but I'll do everything I can to explore this." The promise felt monumental, a direct challenge to everything she had been trained to uphold. Elias nodded, a flash of gratitude shining in his eyes. He leaned down, whispering something soft and inaudible into Kai's ear. The great cat responded, pressing his massive head even closer against Elias's chest, a low rumble echoing through his powerful frame. Anya retreated to the doorway, her mind reeling. What she had witnessed tonight, the inexplicable healing, the impossible bond, suggested a depth of connection that transcended conventional understanding, challenging the rigid boundaries of her scientific education, and Marcus's vague hints about the poaching. Could there truly be more to Elias's life, to his work beyond simple conservation than anyone knew? The sterile hospital walls suddenly felt like a thin veil, barely concealing a much larger, darker mystery. 3 days later, the sterile confines of the hospital were a distant memory, replaced by the crisp, earthy scent of pine and damp soil. A specialized medical transport van, designed for comfort and complex care, navigated the winding, unpaved roads leading deep into the Oakdale Wildlife Sanctuary. Dr. Anya Sharma sat beside Elias Vance, monitoring his vitals, the hum of the forest a soothing counterpoint to the gentle beeping of medical equipment. "Almost home, Elias," she said softly, her voice carrying a warmth she rarely allowed in the clinical environment. The journey had been arduous, a testament to her determination and the complex bureaucratic hoops she'd navigated. Elias, pale but with a serene expression, managed a weak smile. "Thank you for this, Anya," he whispered, his eyes alight with a peace that hadn't been there in weeks. "I didn't want my last view to be a hospital ceiling." As they drew closer to a modest, rustic cabin nestled amidst ancient oaks, distant lion calls intensified, growing from a low growl to a full-throated roar that echoed through the wilderness. Elias's smile widened. "They know," he murmured, his voice filled with an almost mystical conviction. "Animals always know." The cabin, a sturdy log structure, was surprisingly well appointed inside. A comfortable, adjustable bed had been set up, surrounded by discreet medical equipment. Large windows offered breathtaking views of the dense woods, and beyond them the sprawling animal enclosures. It was a haven, a place of profound connection. Nurse Lena Cruz, a woman in her 60s with kind eyes and an air of no-nonsense efficiency, arrived shortly after they settled in. "So I understand there's another caregiver in the picture," she quipped, her gaze darting toward the enclosure that was clearly Kai's. Anya managed a weary smile, acknowledging the absurdity of their situation. Marcus Thorne then explained the unique setup. Elias built a special passage connecting Kai's main enclosure directly to the cabin. For years, they've shared this space. It's their sanctuary within the sanctuary. He then added, a note of deep concern in his voice. "Simba, Kai's brother, he's barely eaten since Elias stopped visiting. Lions can decline rapidly when their bonds are broken. This place, it's the heart of everything for them." Anya watched Elias, already looking more vibrant, and turned to Marcus. "What about the future of the sanctuary, Marcus? After Elias, what happens?" Marcus sighed, running a hand through his grizzled beard. "Elias established a substantial endowment, enough to keep Oakdale running for decades. But the true mission, that's less public, Dr. Sharma." He paused, glancing towards Elias's room, then leaned closer to Anya, his voice dropping to a near whisper. Elias wasn't just a conservationist in the traditional sense. He saw something disturbing when he found Kai all those years ago. Those peculiar traps, the odd biomarkers you heard about. He started documenting a growing environmental threat, a shadow organization operating in the fringes of scientific research. A cold dread seeped into Anya's bones. This wasn't about a dying man's final wish anymore. This was about something far more dangerous. Just then, Elias called out from his bed, his voice surprisingly firm. "Anya, I'd appreciate it if you could stay just a little longer. There's something I'd like you to witness and understand." He offered her a conspirator's smile, a glint in his eye that suggested a deep, unsettling purpose. Anya felt a sharp prickle of unease. Elias's final request had been about more than just dying at home. It was a summons. He hadn't just wanted her to facilitate his passing. He wanted her to be here, to be involved. He was drawing her into his world, into the hidden layers of his life's work, into a secret that could jeopardize everything. The cabin, nestled in its tranquil forest, suddenly felt less like a haven and more like a potential trap. She was no longer just a doctor. She was becoming an unwitting participant in a narrative she barely comprehended, a narrative steeped in past danger and an unfolding conspiracy. As darkness finally descended upon the Oakdale Sanctuary, painting the vast Minnesota sky with countless stars, a hushed anticipation filled Elias Vance's cabin. Marcus Thorne entered the room, his gaze settling on Elias. "Ready?" he asked, his voice low, imbued with a strange mix of solemnity and expectation. Elias, despite his frailty, nodded, his eyes bright with a childlike anticipation. Marcus moved to a discreet wall panel, a series of complex buttons indicating advanced engineering. He pressed them, and the cabin responded with a soft, mechanical whirring, the subtle groan of safety mechanisms disengaging. A large, reinforced door seamlessly integrated into the wall slid open, revealing a darkened passage. From the shadows, Kai emerged. The massive lion padded silently into the room, his powerful body moving with an innate grace. His head surveyed the space, his golden amber eyes, luminous in the dim light, scanning. They found Elias, and a soft, chuffing sound deep in his chest escaped him, a sound of complete ease of homecoming. Nurse Lena Cruz, despite her professional composure, remained utterly still in her chair, her knuckles white where she gripped the armrest. Her eyes were wide, fixed on the approaching predator. Marcus stood poised by the control panel, ready, his vigilance a stark reminder of the wild power now sharing their space. Kai, with a tenderness that defied his immense size and fearsome reputation, approached the reinforced bed frame. With extraordinary care, he eased himself onto the sturdy structure, arranging his massive body alongside Elias. He rested his head gently against the old man's chest, his breath, warm and heavy, ruffling Elias's hospital gown. "Hey, old friend," Elias whispered, his hand reaching out, frail but firm, to stroke the lion's magnificent mane. "I told you we'd come home." A deep, rumbling purr, a sound that vibrated through the floorboards and into Anya's very bones, filled the room. It was a sound of profound comfort, of unwavering loyalty. "His heartbeat," Elias explained, his voice weak but clear, his eyes twinkling. "Lions can hear heartbeats from great distances. Kai's been listening to mine since he was a cub. He knows." Anya, standing a respectful distance away, felt her scientific skepticism crumble. "This is remarkable," she breathed, her voice barely a whisper. "I've never seen anything like it. It defies everything I thought I knew." Elias smiled, a knowing, almost mischievous glint in his eye. "We underestimate the emotional capacity of animals, Anya. We project our limited understanding onto them, but they remember. Simba, Kai's brother, hasn't forgotten a single person who's ever mistreated him or shown him kindness." His words resonated with a deeper meaning, a quiet accusation. He gestured weakly towards a worn leather journal lying on his bedside table. "My observations," he said, 40 years of work. "Not just about lions, but about the delicate balance of this world. The last entries are about this, about Kai's behavior during my illness. It may help others understand what I've always known." As Anya looked at the journal, a chilling realization dawned on her. Elias's work wasn't merely a collection of scientific observations. It was a testament, a meticulous documentation against an unspoken cruelty. This deep, almost symbiotic bond with Kai, which he had first dismissed as an extraordinary anomaly, was in fact a cornerstone of his decades-long investigation. It was a tool, perhaps, in exposing the very human-related danger Marcus had hinted at, an insidious threat that went far beyond simple poaching, touching on something darker, more systemic. She felt Kai's amber eyes on her again, a sense of intelligent watchfulness, not aggression, but an almost human understanding. It was as if he knew, too, that she was now part of something greater, something dangerous, something that Elias was entrusting her to discover. For a full week, Dr. Anya Sharma visited Elias Vance daily, each visit deepening the mystery that surrounded him. His decline, though inexorable, was remarkably slow, almost defying the rapid progression expected from his diagnosis. His pain, too, seemed miraculously manageable, a testament to Kai's constant comforting presence. The lion remained steadfast by Elias's side, a living, breathing guardian. Outside the sanctuary's gates, a media encampment had formed, a buzzing hive of reporters and satellite trucks. Marcus Thorne handled them with a wary protectiveness, carefully filtering information. Even a National Geographic crew, allowed a rare glimpse from a safe distance, found themselves mesmerized by the unfolding narrative. What was even more astonishing was Kai's own transformation. The stress and anxiety that had plagued him in Elias's absence now visibly receded. His tawny coat regained its luster, his amber eyes shone with a renewed vitality, and his appetite, previously diminished, returned with a vengeance. "He knows," Elias told Anya one afternoon, a faint smile touching his lips. "Animals understand death better than we do. They accept the cycle and they grieve, but they also find solace in shared time." Marcus, in a rare moment of openness, shared old video footage from the sanctuary's archives. A young, vibrant Elias, a tiny injured Kai cub nestled in his arms. The footage powerfully reinforced their profound lifelong bond, but it also underscored Elias's early, desperate refusal to euthanize the cub even when faced with severe, life-threatening injuries. "Everyone said he wouldn't make it," Marcus recalled, his voice thick with emotion. "Elias never gave up. Never." On the 10th day, the delicate balance shifted. Elias was noticeably weaker, his breath shallower, his eyes cloudier. Kai, ever attuned, sensed the change. His normal, placid demeanor gave way to heightened alertness. He began making soft, inquiring vocalizations, nuzzling Elias more frequently, as if attempting to coax him back from the precipice. Elias, his voice barely a whisper, called to Anya, "I think we're near the end, Anya. Please stay." His hand trembled as he gestured toward the worn, leather-bound journal on his bedside table. "My observations. 40 years. The last entries are about this, about Kai's behavior. And something else, something vital." As Anya reached for the journal, her hand brushed against a loose panel in the bedside table. It gave way with a faint click, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside, nestled amongst layers of felt, were not just encrypted drives, but also a thick dossier. The cover bore the unmistakable, chillingly corporate logos of Ethel Solutions. Anya's blood ran cold. Her fingers fumbled with the dossier, pulling out a document labeled Project Chimera. It detailed illegal genetic marker collection from specific big cat species, including lions. Her eyes darted further down, and she gasped aloud. It was a report about the poaching incident that orphaned Kai, but with details starkly contradicting official records. Specialized capture nets, unusual biotags, not crude poacher's traps. The truth Marcus had hinted at, the deeper, darker truth, was now laid bare before her. Elias, his voice now a mere thread of sound, confirmed her worst fears. "The truth. It's in the journal, and what you found, they'll come for it. Ethel Corp. They don't want the world to know what they're doing." His gaze, though fading, was intensely urgent. He then explained his contingency plan for Kai. "He's not just my companion, he's part of the defense. Kai knows the perimeter, knows how to protect this cabin and what it holds. He'll live out his days here protecting the evidence." His eyes pleaded with Anya, "I need you to help ensure it. Ensure the truth comes out." Anya felt the immense burden of his legacy settle upon her shoulders. The fear was palpable, a cold knot in her stomach, but it was quickly overshadowed by a fierce resolve. She promised him, her voice firm despite the tremor in her hands. She understood. She was no longer just a doctor, a compassionate observer. She was a custodian of a dangerous truth, a guardian of a lion, and the inheritor of a battle against a powerful, shadowy corporation. The cabin air grew heavy, thick with unspoken grief in the imminent shadow of death. Shortly after midnight, Elias Vance's breathing became more labored, each shallow gasp a struggle. Anya gently administered another dose of morphine, watching the rise and fall of his chest, a desperate, fading rhythm. Suddenly, Elias's eyes snapped open, blazing with an unnerving clarity. "Robert!" he called out, his voice thin but resolute, catching Marcus Thorne's attention across the room. "The contingency plan. Remember our agreement." Then his gaze fixed on Anya, profound and earnest. His voice, barely audible, was filled with a lifetime of love and a desperate plea. "Kai is 22. Promise me, Anya. Promise me you'll help ensure he lives out his days here, safe." Anya, choked with emotion, her throat tight, managed to whisper, "I promise, Elias, I promise." In that moment, she understood the full weight of her commitment. Her testimony, the journal, the hidden files, they would be Kai's shield and her sword against Ethel Solutions. As the first faint blush of dawn touched the cabin windows, painting the sky in melancholic grays, Elias's breathing grew even shallower. Kai, who had been a silent sentinel, slowly rose to a sitting position. His amber eyes, unblinking, never left Elias's face, tracing the delicate lines of a life ending. Then Kai began to vocalize. It wasn't a growl nor a roar, but a series of soft, almost musical sounds deep within his chest, unlike anything Anya had ever heard from a lion. It was a lament, a profound expression of sorrow, raw and beautiful. Elias, with a last trembling effort, lifted a hand to Kai's magnificent mane. He whispered something, a final, intimate farewell, words only the lion could hear. Then, with a peaceful sigh, his hand fell still. The monitors beside the bed flatlined, emitting a long, continuous tone that pierced the sudden silence. Anya paused, transfixed, as Kai slowly lowered his massive head. Resting his forehead gently against Elias's, he remained motionless for long, agonizing minutes, a tableau of profound grief and stillness. Then, with a soft shift, he lay down, his large paw resting protectively across Elias's chest, a deep, continuous purr rumbling through his powerful frame, a sound of solace and final connection. "Let him say goodbye in his own way," Marcus murmured, his voice thick with emotion, his own eyes glistening. 3 hours later, as the full light of morning flooded the cabin, Kai finally stirred. He stood, stretched, and with a dignified, almost mournful slowness, walked through the hidden passage to his enclosure. In the days that followed, Anya helped Marcus meticulously document every detail of Elias's last moments, the inexplicable bond, the lion's vigil. The story, picked up by the earlier media presence, swelled into an international phenomenon. A National Geographic documentary aptly titled The Lion's Vigil was quickly produced, garnering accolades and shedding a compassionate light on the animal kingdom. But beneath the public's awe, a darker current stirred. Marcus, his face etched with a new, grim concern, approached Anya one evening. "Dr. Sharma," he began, his voice low, "we've had unusual inquiries about Elias's personal effects and research materials from a law firm. They're directly linked to Ethel Solutions. They know you were here." Anya, clutching Elias's worn leather journal and the hidden files to her chest, felt a cold dread seep into her bones. Kai's unprecedented intelligence, his unwavering loyalty, his very presence at Elias's deathbed, it wasn't just gratitude. It was an unspoken prophecy, a warning. His vigil wasn't just for Elias, but for the truth Elias died to protect. The sanctuary, now a beacon of hope and attention, was also a target. And she, a doctor who had simply wanted to ease a dying man's final moments, was now at the heart of the classified incident Elias had been fighting for decades. The battle, it seemed, had only just begun. Dr. Anya Sharma's journey began with the sterile beeps of monitors in room 304, a terminal diagnosis, and a dying man's wish for a dignified exit on my own terms. What she couldn't have anticipated was a phone call that would challenge everything she understood about the natural world, forcing her beyond the rigid boundaries of medical protocol. Initially confronting Marcus Thorne's request as highly irregular, Anya found herself drawn into an unbelievable bond between Elias Vance and his lion Kai, a connection so profound it defied science, bringing peace and even a miraculous stability to Elias's final days. But the lion's vigil was more than just a poignant farewell. It was an entry point into a decades-long covert investigation by Elias Vance, revealing the sinister depths of Ethel Solutions and their Project Chimera. With Elias's last breath, Anya inherited not just a journal and hidden files exposing illegal genetic experimentation, but a dangerous truth. Kai's unprecedented intelligence and loyalty, initially a phenomenon, transformed into an unspoken prophecy, a living testament to the human threat Elias fought against. The sanctuary, once a haven, now stands as a battleground, and Dr. Anya Sharma, the compassionate physician, is now the reluctant guardian of a truth powerful enough to shake the world, a truth that places her and Kai directly in the crosshairs of a vast corporate cover-up. She is no longer just a doctor, she is the only one who can ensure Elias's fight was not in vain.